Okay, ready, go.
Okay, so welcome everyone. And so today we have two meetings. We have our first meeting now as a workshop, and we'll be discussing capital projects and the rate study, and then we'll have a 15-minute break between 2:45 and 3 o'clock. And at 3 o'clock we will have the regular meeting that we will be doing some voting on. So today's meeting, if anybody would like to call in, we have the number to call in is 702-589-9629. So first off, I guess make sure that I'm saying that I did start the meeting. And so then I'll repeat the number one more time, the meeting for comments. So we don't have do we make sure? There it is, sorry. Okay, so the meeting for the first public comment, which would be the same as the second one, of course, is 702-589-9629. So I guess we will open it up for the comment period. And that is to only discuss items that are on the agenda.
Almost doubling of the original WAPA agreement. The two amendments beg the question of why these issues weren't considered originally, since the documentation doesn't indicate that the city changed the project parameters. WAPA is an experienced operator and should have well-developed expertise in costing and scoping out projects. Are these amendments truly necessary or nice to haves? Should Boulder City be using WAPA now and in the future if they can't accurately scope out a given project at its inception? Hopefully these questions will be asked and answered during the committee's deliberations.
Okay, Fred?
Yes.
Currently we're in the workshop meeting. So we're looking at agenda items. So hopefully, I'm not sure how clear that was in the on the website, so I apologize.
No, it wasn't. So that's where, so you're going to have to tell me which agenda items you're dealing with now versus at 2:45.
Okay, so right now we're dealing with the discussion of utility capital improvement plan and the utility rate study discussion.
Okay, fine. So that's where I'm headed next, and I'll just either reiterate those at 2:45 or they can stand on the record now, your choice.
Actually, Fred will be
more troubling is the latest capital project spreadsheet dated 10/26/2020 and incorporated into agenda item number 4. With 1/3 of the current fiscal year at an end, only 16.8% of the revised budget has been spent or encumbered. Over $4.3 million of new projects were added from 5/31/20 to the current fiscal year. The monies budgeted are consistently not spent in the assigned fiscal year, yet new projects are layered on top of the existing projects.
Okay, Fred, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but actually we're going, again, it's been a little confusing. The packet should have had the capital improvements for 22 through 26, and that's what we're going to be discussing on the workshop. We might be doing some of the how things lead in and how things fall off, but what you're discussing now is, like I said, agenda item 4 is also, and it'll be at 3 o'clock that we will adjourn, or we will start the next regular meeting. So we were hoping to have more discussion at the workshop and then have some voting capabilities at a regular meeting. That's why we've done it this time, and I guess see how it works. So,
well, it's just that these comments go right to that subject, Larry, in terms of adding more projects in 2022 when we haven't completed it and we keep having a backlog from year to year is a problem.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
So that's why I'm mentioning it now. So it's not about timing of invoices or check issuance, but it is about the city's capacity to complete these projects discussion about the current operating procedure of automatically rolling over unspent capital project money from one fiscal year to another indefinitely would be worthwhile. In looking at any new capital projects for fiscal year 2022, which is agenda item 5, consideration needs to be given to dialing back the number and phases of projects to a level where they can actually be completed in the budget year. Perhaps the catch-up period of time would be appropriate to remove the project backlog where some of the projects are deferred altogether until future years and others have only partial work scheduled. And regarding the utility rate study, hopefully that I can speak to that now as well. As was brought up in the recent Joint Committee City Council meeting, the utilities rate study in item 6 has at least 2 questionable inclusions. Made at the city finance director's insistence, they actually translate into a net rate increase, not a decrease for city ratepayers. The 5% franchise fee makes little sense when most ratepayers would be charged to use property they already own as city residents. That the NRS permits such a charge for investor-owned utilities such as Cox, Century, Southwest Gas, and Nevada Energy is a poor rationale to impose this new charge for Boulder City municipal utilities. Investor-owned utilities don't absorb this cost but pass the charge on to their customers as a new tax for an essential service. Similarly, the undefined and unjustified suggestion for still more administrative expense reimbursement needs detailed examination and potential reduction or complete elimination rather than serving to offload more City Hall expenses onto utility ratepayers or generating more money for the city's general fund, the apparent motivations for arbitrarily adding new costs to utility ratepayers. And I will submit these comments for inclusion verbatim. Thank you.
Thank you. We will wait just a short minute here just to see in case anybody else would like to comment, and then we'll move on. Okay, so I guess we will move on. I think we need a little more time for the rate study, so I would suggest that maybe at least by 2 o'clock, no, by 1:45 we start the rate discussion. Dennis, do you think that's gonna be a problem? Okay, does anybody else, does that agree? Okay, so we'll go forward on that. So I guess then, Dennis, do you want to start us off on the discussion of the utility capitals?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. Give me a second here. The sheet is in the workshop agenda. It's the spreadsheet with 22 through 26. This is the same thing you've seen at the previous meetings with regards to the new projects or projects that were already in existence, 22 through 26. These were also the projects that have been included in the rate study for determining what kind of impact, what, if any, impacts they would have on the rates. The majority of the funding requirements is for the electrical system. However, there were obviously water and sewer projects that were added as a result of the condition assessment work that was done. And then I can answer any questions regarding both priority, timing, ability to get work done, that type of conversation we can certainly have.
Anybody want to start, or you'd like me to start? Okay. I guess on some of these things, I think we can bring them up at different points. We have a couple things for this agenda and the regular meeting. But I think to help us, and I would think it would definitely help the council, is to understand what year these projects are being designed and the bid and proposals being. So for instance, like your substation 3 rebuild. So I'm assuming that the 500,000 is design and bid design.
Yeah, and it's just an estimate of, which proportion it would be design and which one would be construction, but yes.
And then we'd be looking at construction in fiscal year 23.
Correct.
So especially on those papers that are put out, the capital paper, that would be helpful to say, to have that information on there.
I think we can add some language there without providing too much language that could clarify that information, and we could have that ready for the next regular meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I know we had more detail in the water sewer. We can bring that electrical up to that level as well.
Yeah, that's because, like I said, the water is great. That I saw a lot of it. Most of the water, I think there was one that I had a little concern on, but most of it had a lot better information, and we could follow it, and you can see where it was needed and stuff like that. Some of the other information might be, for instance, like the San Felipe. If I'm understand correctly, that one is needed to be done before the substation 3 can be done, and so that would be helpful to have on that spreadsheet.
Right, we can add why it's a priority,
yes,
or what
exactly.
needs to go before one of the substations can be taken out of service. We can add that as well.
So then this year we're in the design and bid stage, and then next year we're hoping to get it done.
Yeah, that's correct. And it doesn't always, because things come up. As an example, where we've been impacted, unfortunately, with COVID, is we had projects ready to be bid. We held off on them. An example would be the Arizona Street feeder project, because the concerns about what's going to happen with revenues. So council put a hold on all general fund and utility projects. We have since taken those forward to city council, and they've given us permission to move ahead. So in fact, the Arizona Street feeder project bids will open this month, and we'll get a better idea where that project is. But we have had capacity issues as well internally. At least 2 of the positions in public works that would have been helping get projects out the door and with inspections were put on budget hold or unfunded, again, as a result of COVID when we revised the COVID budget. So we are short-staffed on the public works side. So we're gonna have to figure out how to manage that as well.
Okay.
Because that could certainly impact timing of these projects getting out the door.
So yeah, the 2 others that I was looking at, I have some to continue on with Fred's comments too. But so right now we have Circuit 63-64 and Feeder 1424. Again, no information at all on what those are for. It just says reconstruction. So it doesn't. I don't know if we can at least say in verbiage where they're located, so we can idea. I know we can't show a map, but
I have the map.
Okay.
So
again, council, we want to recommend to council. They're in the same boat we are. They don't really know, and it's a matter of, okay, is that are these also for the substations 1 and 2 that will be eliminated?
Correct, and I can have Marvis provide some additional information on that as well, if you would like that right now.
Sure, that would be.
I think we have
enough time. Does everybody agree with that?
And if you want, we can put the map up there.
Sure.
I don't know how easy it's going to be.
That's okay. Everybody don't need to see this good-looking guy here.
How's that? A little better? A little better?
Oh, okay, so we're looking at the circuit 63-64. Maybe we'll just start there. That's the first one on the list.
Okay, yeah, 6364 is, those are reconductors to help the Hemingway area, because right now both of those circuits are radial circuits. They don't tie to each other, but so they have no backups. So, but being that they're both coming out of substation 6 and we've done all the work to 6, we're gonna go ahead and complete those and tie those together. And at substation 4, circuit 64, right now actually runs through the property line on Temple Rock, which we have to move that. You know about that, Ned. So that's part of that project as well, to get that out in the right of way around to where it's supposed to be. Because right now it runs through somebody's backyard, so if we ever have any issues, we gotta have some real issues with that thing.
So is that gonna cause delays on relocating it?
No. So we already, that should go out to design. Hopefully, if engineering can do what they're supposed to do, that's going to go out to design probably in January. They're going to start the surveying later this month, early December. So surveying has already been approved for that to start that project. So.
Yes, Marvis, are those overhead lines or underground lines or a combination of the
Those
two?
are underground.
Underground.
Yes, sir. They're underground. And actually, they both take off out of 6. 64 goes across the parkway and up through the backyard, through the Temple Rock, and 63 goes up, crosses at the convenience store, crosses the parkway there, and goes up through Tuscany area. Yeah, so that's how those, and then they come around together almost on at the end of Quartzsite, but they never physically tied together, right?
Okay.
What are those 2 feeders feeding?
Use your microphone, please.
It says don't touch it. What are those two feeders feeding?
Circuit 63 is feeding, like I said, Tuscany and part of, I guess they call it Collins Brothers, Fire Agate, that area. And it's a backup to our Circuit 60, which is now part of 65. It's a backup to Substation 4, Circuits 41 and 42 out of there. Circuit 64 feeds the, we'll go ahead and call it the southeast end of Temple Rock area, and also back around to the east end of Quartzsite area, back up in the Villa Grande area. And all that's, like I said, is radial, but that'll give us some kind of tie backup to those.
And doesn't one of those circuits feed the lift station down at the bottom of the Hemingway Valley?
No, that's Circuit 62.
62?
Yeah, but 62 does tie into 64. That is one of our ties.
Okay.
We do have a normal open there, but that normal circuit is 62 that feeds the lift station.
Now, is this going to be contracted or is this going to be in-house?
The civil excavation obviously be contracted, but the wire install termination will be in-house as much as possible. So
Okay.
all of these projects, for the most part, the wire install, termination, energizing will be done in-house. The only part we cannot handle is the excavation, conduit install, things of that nature. So, but everything else, if everything goes right, and we are short-staffed, we are 2 men down, not including the 2 that you guys had projected that we could get later on, earlier in the year before the COVID thing hit. We have lost 2 since then. So, but depending on how we fill those, we'll still try to do everything in-house.
Okay, yeah, because I guess that either today, this first meeting or the next meeting, that might be something to understand is what each project, who's doing it, whether it's contracted or in-house, because you're saying these circuits are being done
Yes.
by in-house. So
Yes.
if we understand the rest of the contracts, some of them, like for instance, the substations and stuff, I'm assuming that is probably mostly contracted.
That's all contracted out, yes, sir.
So if we look down the line, then we might be able to sort of understand, and then it also answer a little bit of Fred's question is what's feasibly going to be able to be done.
Right.
So, because when I'm looking at, on that one, I think that answers a lot of my questions. Anybody else have any other questions on that circuit?
I just have a dumb layman's question, but
Yes,
it's basically about redundancy. If something fails, then you can run the current another way.
Yes, sir, that's correct. We can isolate the issue without having to go and remove the cable and make immediate repairs. We can isolate that issue and still pick up the majority of the affected area.
So what is the thing that would fail? The substation? Is that what you're trying to ensure?
The cable, it's most of the time the cable itself, because the system is aging. So a lot of this is not only making the ties, but a lot of it is reconductoring to upgrade the cable. Because like I said, we're looking at 15, 20-year cable, which that's the life expectancy, but of course, you can't pinpoint that. So that's what we're also looking at. Yes, sir.
Thanks, because I think that's a lot of things we're looking at is that we've been trying to understand is the getting the backbone back up to speed.
Yes.
And then making sure we have the proper backups, because that's one thing we haven't had, and that's one thing you're working on. And that's what I think some of the stuff from the 2015 and on was trying to get some of the backup, and then things have happened since 2015 evidently to sort of get us going. So maybe that's the one thing I think that would be helpful when we go forward to the city council, or our recommendation, or however we're going to be able to accomplish this, is that we can say this is something that definitely needs to move forward, because we have a potential to have problems.
Yes, sir.
There. So that's what it looked like to me. So again, so if we can go to feeder, then 14 and 24.
Okay.
So
14 and 24 are being reconductored because they will be eventually coming out of substation 1, which is a 4 kV sub. That sub and substation 2 are being decommissioned eventually a couple years from now. So we need to upgrade that cabling to a cable that will accommodate 15 kV. And our normal operating system is 12,470 volts, but it's rated at 15 kV. So we need to upgrade that cable and those components. And right now that cabling, and Mr. Ned could probably touch on this a little better than me, but that cabling has been in the ground 25, 30 years and has not been maintained or upgraded at all. So we're barely getting by on that as it is. So we can't do anything else with that cable, and that ties those two circuits together, which substation 2, substation 1 will be decommissioned, so they have to be upgraded to accommodate the new voltage of the 12470, which will be now out of substation 3 once that's rebuilt, and substation 4. It'll pick up those two substations.
So that has to be done before you can do the.
Yes, before we can take out 3. The majority of these projects, like I said, we can go down the line, but 53 has to be completed, 63 has to be completed before we can take out substation 3, because we need something to be able to carry that load that is on substation 3, which is at Mountain. What is that street called down there off of Utah? River Mountain.
River Mountain. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, if you could put that in the description.
Comments? Yes, sir.
That would be very helpful, because then now you're just justifying why it has to be done.
Yes.
Right now we just see the verbiage and it's like, does it or doesn't it have, and can it be done? I think that's what a lot of people are asking.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely.
So that'd be great. Any questions on that?
Just one other question. Are you going to replace sub 1, or is that just going away?
Substation 1 and 2 are going away altogether. Yeah.
All right. You're not going to convert.
No. When everything's said and done, we'll only have 4 substations, 3 through 6.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thanks.
So it might be some.
I got one. Don't list the names or addresses of the subs. Just leave it vague like this. Being specifically vague is very good.
Yes, I agree.
No, that's fine. Just so we at least know that.
Substation, we'll just need the numbers. Yes.
Right. So what I'm seeing on the 22 list is, as you've said, are things that have to be done, and maybe either depending, I guess we'll be talking about that at the end of our regular meeting as far as the next agendas. But if we do have a workshop on the 16th, maybe we could get a little better understanding of what all these substations, how we're going to eventually. So I guess theoretically, let's see, we're looking at substation 2. So right now, the removal of substation 1 and 2 are not on the 5-year projection. Is that correct?
Actually, I thought they were, because I thought they were going to be 20. I thought it was going to be 24 and 25. They were coming out, but maybe I missed it.
Substation.
Substation 2, 3.
Oh, I wonder if it was out in 27.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, we'll have to check on that.
Okay, but that might be, I think it'd be helpful to sort of tie everything. We're getting a better picture, but I think to understand that, okay, we're getting rid of 1 and 2, 3 is taken, and it'll depend on how much we can say what the other ones are doing, but they're, again, sort of an order of what we're doing, what we're trying to get to, then that would be helpful. And then what the importance of the backups, like I said, San Felipe is a major, it's a backup and we has to be done, so it's certain things. So what I'm understanding is that for 22, all of that needs to be done to go forward.
Yes.
And right now, we've got the last one is the pole replacement, and that I want to talk about in just a minute, but that needs to be started, I would assume, as soon as possible.
Right. If you look at the 4 to 12 cutover 4 kV substations removal, I thought it says 24. That's what I thought, but it's written differently. They kind of combined it. 119.
Oh, the 4 12 kV cutover.
Right. Yeah.
Substation removals.
4 kV substation removal, yes.
Okay. And so the question is going to be, I think with all of us looking, is whether we can even do it in 24 if it has to be pushed out into 25.
It may need to be pushed because we do have a lot of lay work still left to do, the cable reconductoring and all the circuits. So it'll be tight 24, but so it may be filtered over into 25.
Does everybody, so either in the next meeting or two, does everybody agree that would be sort of get a better idea of the overall, the big picture? If we can get sort of how things are coming up, am I missing something?
You've got the money to do the work, you don't have the manpower. That's the problem. To rebuild sub 3, I highly recommend that we take a look at it as a group or as the city and plan for at least some foundations to be added as part of the rebuild project for future need. You don't ever want to go into a substation that you've just de-energized and have to go back in there and bust it all apart to add more stuff. Now's the time to do it when we're doing the groundwork. Get it figured out as to what we need and then put it in now and allow for 20% expansion on footings for the future.
Well, this would be, if we're designing that in 22, then we have time to discuss that.
The design for 3 has already been done and it is expanded already. So we didn't rebuild it as it is. It has been expanded for like 7 to 8 circuits, which right now I think it's only 4 and only 2 of those are in service right now. So the design was already created with an expansion in mind. So yes.
Yeah, and the other thing is they got a lot of dirt work to do to get that done. So
Absolutely.
That's the main thing. We got to bulldoze that mountaintop off to where we can get some more footprint on it.
Yes.
But I guess, there again, I appreciate that we don't want to get into your daily business and we're not trying to. But I guess, an executive summary. So the Arizona feed was sent out because that's getting ready for bid, and
It's out for bid now.
and it's public knowledge.
Yes, it's out.
And that was very helpful. There's a lot of data there, and there's more data than we need. That's true, but there was a lot of data that explained a lot more what's going on than I had understood in the past. So and I understand we don't want a page of description in the simple, what we're doing for the capital page, that page that has the description and the funding of it. But how can this group get a better understanding of some executive summary that might be a page for each project? So then we can understand what is being planned for substation 3 and so we get a little bit more understanding. And so that way we don't, and especially when we know a little bit further out, we don't have to get into their daily business. We say, hey, we see something that maybe benefits the city here.
Well, we can do, like I said, I was instrumental in giving some information on the Arizona project. So when I sat down with Mr. Dennis and Mr. Keegan, so we can do that with the rest of these projects to give you something like that was provided for the Arizona, which was provided to council before they were able to go ahead and approve it. They needed a little more description as to why it was needed to be done, the reasoning, and what it would accomplish. We can do that. I have no problem with that.
That would be helpful to see that. That would be great. About how long do you think that would be?
By next meeting.
Okay, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Because I think we can't vote on this meeting. I mean, in the regular meeting either. We don't have any action in this for the capital. But I believe maybe at least by the December 2nd, we want to be doing a vote. So if we had it definitely by then, but if we had it by the 16th, then again, I think it would be helpful to get into, delve into it a little bit more. Hopefully, if we do have a meeting on the 16th, it won't have that many agenda items, and we can get into a little more detail.
And if you could, do me and us a favor, just line out the ones you would like more information on. That way I can concentrate on those and get you that description on those. Unless, like I said, you want everything I'm good with, or if there's specific ones that you would like more information on.
Well, I guess it depends on,
I think we'd like to have the 22, 23s at least now, and then, you know, give you some time to fill in the other ones, but at least 22 by the next meeting.
Okay, I can absolutely.
Would make me satisfied, since it's coming up immediately.
Okay, we can have, I can have 22, 23.
And that
That's
gives
no
you a little
problem.
breathing room to get the other ones done as we progress.
Absolutely.
that sounds good.
Okay.
If that,
One more question on 5. Is that both transformers or just the south transformer?
Both,
Oh, both.
yes.
So why, the pads are too small, the foundations?
Just upgrading them because the projection is we're probably going to have to add 2 more circuits in 5.
Okay.
I know 55 is planned because we have a solar station that wants some stuff, so we need a circuit for that, and then be able to separate some of that other stuff. So,
Okay.
and I know 1 for sure is planned, but it's probable, should I say, it's 2 more circuits, and we're already basically at capacity right now. And we actually want to do an even split on substation 5 right now. Right now, bank 2 is 2 circuits, and bank 1 has the other 4. And we want to reconfigure it where they're even. Each bank has its fair share.
Is it still going to be 20 MVA transformers?
Yeah, 20s or 30. We're looking at probably 33s.
Really? Oh.
So when we start upgrading these things, all 33s, if it is feasible. Because that would more than accomplish everything we need, plus project any growth that we see over the next 10 years before I retire. Yes.
so what I understand is that the council will be voting on the fiscal year 22 tentative capital on the 8th of December.
That is correct.
And then, so as I said before, then I think if we can vote or do some type of action or recommendation on the 2nd of December, then, so any information, so that I think the 16th, as we'll discuss later, probably would be helpful to try to keep going forward to that. So our immediate goal is is that we want to understand the 22, and then we need to understand, if it be April or what it is, we need to have the full 5-year plan understood and worked with. Like I said, maybe we should just say, okay, some of these things really aren't feasible, we're gonna have to slip. And Fred had a point. I don't know exactly how you would do it, but is there recovery time? Do we have to say, hey, we've got to get these projects that have been in the works since about at least 2017, if not before, and we're still not catching up. And now with the COVID and other things, we've gotten even further behind on some of the stuff. At least we were hoping to get caught up, if I understood correctly, and we didn't make some of the dates that we thought we were.
Right, and we are going to continue to have challenges with regards to that, because, we're kind of focused on electric, but we got new water and sewer projects coming up as well, and our intent there is to go out for basically a request for qualifications for consulting services, where we'll basically get a list of consultants that all have the expertise for water, for sewer, for electric, take that to council for approval, so then we can just go select off those lists, because that'll be a time saver versus going out for, statement of qualifications for each individual project every time. Then that just adds time. If we have a list that the council's already blessed of, 6 or 7 consulting firms for each type of work, then that will help expedite that. And we want to do that, get that done before June 30th, so that we can hit the floor running with design for 22 projects.
So if I'm understanding correctly, so is that something that you would bring in front of this committee to say, here's 6 people and here's why, there's 6, why we agree?
We would
and then
bring it here first, and it would go to city council. That's just a quicker process over the hill, which I don't know if you like to use that or not, but that's something they do all the time. They'll do like a list that's good for 2 years or 3 years, and then they just go select off those lists. I know the county does it, I know Henderson does it, and others as well. So that's and you can't bid professional services. You can't, it's not a price war. It's based on their qualifications. So they would just have to show and prove that they got the project team, project experience with these different types of work.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's what we need to continue, is just how do we continue with the capital? How do we just make the infrastructure better, et cetera, and how do we get it done?
Right.
So if that's another way, then it's definitely
Right.
something to look
And
to
so
look forward to.
we'll be taking a hard look at, how do we get caught up?
Right.
And so-
And I think if you can keep us in the loop on that, that would be helpful to understand. So again, not in your daily routine, but what's being done to sort of get things on track.
Yeah, and again, it looks like, at least it feels like to me, that city council knows that our revenues from an enterprise fund perspective haven't really been impacted by COVID. And of course, that was everybody's concern for both the general fund and the utility enterprise funds. So I think they're gonna be more amenable to, letting loose on those projects like Arizona Street.
Okay. Yeah, that, like I said, it helped a lot, understanding that was your big tie into the substation 1 and 2 and need and 2. Otherwise, like I said, when it just says replace it, that doesn't tell me anything. So, George, did I see you hand, there is a hand?
No, I don't think, I might have.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any, so I think that does it for the electrical, because then we'll do more on it but it looks like the fiscal year 22 is, like I said before, that it needs to go forward. Because the pole replacement, that's the second year, and doesn't sound, from what I saw in the ongoing, it hasn't even started yet, the wood pole replacements.
No, we have purchased, I'll let.
Okay.
Yeah, actually that has commenced. We've with PAR as part of the 4 to 12 conversion. As we're going down the alleys, any poles that were on the list are being replaced. So we are actively replacing those right now. I believe I submitted a list to Joshua and Dennis a while ago. I think we are probably done about 50 already.
You've done 50?
Yeah, at least 50. I believe it's more than that. And we have an order in for new poles, which I just placed in the middle of October. We'll be here at the end of November for 75 more. So that's actively being done right now.
So, okay, there again, I'm not trying to get in your business,
No,
but if you're doing it as you go along with it, because I'm sure that there were certain poles that were said needed to be replaced as soon as possible.
Yes.
So is that being done?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So,
we're doing.
Those are the ones they're focusing on, so I think it was 168 or something, I don't know the exact number, but it's slightly less than 200, so that's where we're focusing.
okay, so then that would be probably something you'll say a little bit more on the ongoing, then that would be, because, so not having that data last time then, but that's very helpful.
Correct, and that's actually a combination of us doing it in-house as well. Some of the ones that were called out more, we're taking care of those as opposed to the lines that PAR is redoing. They're taking care of those ones on that line, especially the ones that were immediate replacements. They're doing those, and some of the outliers, we're doing those in-house. So yeah, like I said, we've done 50 plus since we got the report.
Okay, well I
Yes.
greatly appreciate that then. Greg?
This pole replacement program where the Red Mountain distribution lines looked at, the poles in that line, are they gonna redo those while they're redoing the circuits?
They were not included, but that's gonna be something that we need to look at as far as the line itself, because we're gonna have to convert that line eventually, since it's coming out of substation 1, which is going away. And right now it's a delta line, so we're gonna have to convert that. So we'll do an assessment on those poles here in the near future to see how many need to replace, or if they even do, because it's gonna be a reconductor, even if it's just adding a neutral to the line itself. And we may be good there, but we'll do an assessment on those.
So what you're saying is the Red Mountain distribution line is not added into the upgrades through town of the 4160 kV to the 12 kV.
It was not to my recollection, not
Okay.
in the deal we did.
I think that needs to be addressed, is to be pushed earlier in the calendar. I don't think it's gonna wait until 2025 to do that. If you've got PAR on site doing pole replacement program for the feeder upgrade, you've got them doing the conductor upgrade, you've got them doing the transformer upgrade, that circuit should be included in the rebuild of the 4160 kV circuits.
Well, it will have to be pushed up to at least 24 anyway, because that's the time frame for 1 and 2 to go away. And like I said, that's being fed out of 1, so the lineup on this is kind of skewed, but yeah, it will be at least at the same time as the decommission of substation 1.
Well, we can cut the circuit free out of 1 and just let it float.
And do what?
It wasn't planned. That's what I'm saying. If you've got to put this in service before you take the substations out, it needs to move up in the calendar
Well,
circuit.
I just said that, yeah, we need to address that, yes.
If we look at the 22 and make sure we got 22 understood by December, if we add these other things in, but if we need a little more time, they need a little more time to do, and we need a little more time to understand it, but we want to have some of this information, we need to have this talk by at least February, March, so we can get ready for so we can have, the committee can have the final analysis of the 5-year plan as soon as possible. Exactly that's needed for the 5-year plan.
And we can actually, we now have the technology, the drone technology, the police and fire have the thermography and all those types of things that go with the drone, so we could actually do a visual and heat thermal inspection very soon in the next 6 months.
So I think what we need to do is we need, today we'll see what happens with the next agenda item, but I think today is a good example of having the time to discuss it. And so that's what I would prefer, to try to go forward with as much as possible, shorten the agenda and have an hour or 2 to discuss this in more detail and then try to figure things out. And so that's what, hopefully we can, the sooner we get to that, the better we can get some of these answered and we can help each other out. So, and as always, Marvis, I appreciate your time and your help.
Thank you.
So do I.
Go ahead, George.
I just have a sort of bookkeeping question, like how are the numbers for these projects determined? Because like San Felipe on the 22-26 sheet is labeled 2108, but on the FY21 it's labeled E2101, and might be, could we make the numbering consistent so we can track these projects across the...
Yes.
Am I making sense? Or?
No, I think you are making,
Okay.
it's been confusing.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Well, additionally, how are the numbers determined? Because why is it, we don't have 100 projects. Why is San Felipe 2108? It's just sort of convenience or something? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a numbering scheme that Public Works uses.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Hopefully these are things that we can, so we just need a little more time to discuss it. So we're pretty much out of time for this subject. We can elaborate a little bit on it when we get into the regular meeting. Does anybody else have any concerns though with either water or sewer before we close this out?
Greg, what were you saying that this Red Mountain, 25, that 1.2 million? That should be moved up to where are you thinking it should go?
It should at least go in the back end of 22 to 23, because it is the feeder that goes up the mountaintop to the LiDAR units for the airport.
So they just need to spread that out, you think, or?
No, it needs to be compressed into one set, because like you said, we're going from a delta to a Y circuit, which means instead of 3 conductors up the mountain, it's going to be 4.
Right.
So now you're going to add an extra load onto all the poles. If the poles can't support the weight, change the poles while you do the cross arms, while you change the pins and put the extra conductor in.
So the part of that money, or some of that money would be?
It should be moved all to 23 or 22. I'd recommend we get it on the dock, on deck really quick, because that circuit is also part of the substation, 4 kV substation removal, which is line item 20-119. So if you've got 2119 coming out in 24, and that's fed out of sub 1, and you got it being replaced in 25, guess what? You've got a year where you got no power going up the mountain.
Yeah, that
They're
makes
not going to
sense.
be happy with it.
Well, I think we should, I think it's a good discussion. So, all right, cool, thanks.
No, it's good, thank you. Anything else? Okay, so we can, if there's any other thoughts, we can do that in the other, in the regular meeting, I think, to include it. But I think the next step is to probably push for the workshop in the was it, I think it's the 16th, or the
I believe it was the 16th, yes.
or the 18th. I think that might be the 18th for this one and the 16th for
Joshua, do you
March.
remember? I don't have it in front of me. 18? 18?
I had it right here too, it's right. No, it'd be the 18th of November. 18th of November, 16th of December, so 18th.
Right.
So if we, so we'll get to that later on also, but I think that would be very helpful, again, if we probably have 2-3 maximum items on,
Yep.
maybe only 2 on that workshop, then we can get into more detail, and maybe that would be just we can get a 3-hour workshop or something on that day. So see how, we can talk about that in the next meeting. Okay, Dennis, did you have anything further?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, so then let's move on to the rate study. So agenda item 2. And so what I would suggest in this is that if we can pull up the recommendation.
That's what I was contemplating myself. It's the last slide, right?
Yeah, it should be. And that's a little bit different than it was with what they presented in November, but it's the same, basically, similar, they presented in October, excuse me.
So there's,
But it's a
there's
similar
the summary
concept.
by each utility, or there's the,
Let's do that one just right now,
For
the last one for right now. I would suggest it. Does everybody want to go with the other one? Well, let me give my suggestion and then see what everybody else wants to do and what slides we might have to go back to. So what my suggestion is that we can work with 3, 4, and 5 at this workshop today to discuss it. Those are easily things that we can discuss. Number 1 and 2, I don't think it's going to take too long, and I'm not sure we still need more information on that. 6, 7, 8, and 9 are still probably more with the after either the draft or the final report. So saying that, starting with that philosophy, does anybody have any comments?
Well, I have a number of concerns, but I don't know how they fit into that. So I was, anyway, I'll just raise them as they go. I don't know. Is that, yeah. So my thought, let me just put out my thoughts and then see what we can go from there. Then if you have some additional ones, we can maybe discuss that early on and how it fits in. So my recommendation is that with the information we currently have, the 3% seems to be a good idea, and the $10. So we can deal with 3.1 and 3.2.1. 3.2.2, I believe we need more information on. So I'd like to discuss, so do we want to just discuss that first, or George, do you have something that you want to do before that we can discuss that? Well, I can voice one of my concerns is they say they're recommending on slide 13, they say they're recommending a central services fee and a franchise fee. Whereas they specifically said in the previous meeting, I can play you the recording if you want, that they were not recommending those things, actually. So which is it?
Well, you got to remember, George, this is from 9. This is not from October. So this is the one that was done in 9. You just pulled the old one up, right? It's not a new one. This is not a new presentation. 9. So this is based on old data.
They've changed their mind and they're no longer recommending a franchise fee.
So their options If you remember, they're options. So the option of, if you're going to go to the cost of service and deal with that, you also need to fix that on the general fund side, because the general fund can't afford to take on the retail rates for water and electric, because they don't have the revenue. So the way to get that revenue is to apply those administrative charge and the franchise fee. So you don't have to do that. That would just mean you probably wouldn't deal with the cost of service at this point in time. You could just track that data over the next 4 or 5 years and see what it looks like at the next rate study and then deal with it. It's not a requirement. The rate consultant, that's how you do rate studies, and that's part of a rate study, but the rate consultant doesn't develop policy. So the city council already did the policy of we're gonna charge the wholesale rate for water and electric, and that's in existence today, so.
So it's kind of inadvertent when they said recommendation, they didn't mean that there on that slide.
Well, it would certainly be their recommendation if that wasn't the policy in place. But they don't.
Well, okay, I don't want to, yeah. All right. And, okay, well, that deals with that one. And also, I just feel, well, where's the cost of service study? We haven't seen it. They're just saying, well, the cost of service.
We at the last meeting, they said it would be 4 to 6 weeks. I just checked in with that, and they're still within that range.
Because I don't see how we're supposed to vote or discuss these things when we don't have any evidence. They're just saying, well, here's the cost, and we'll let you know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
That's what's my question on credibility.
I guess I wouldn't be prepared to answer that, but if you don't add the franchise fee, then you can't really fix the cost of service. So if you as a group don't think that's a good idea, then you'll see the final cost of service study, and we'll know going forward what numbers we need to be looking at. It just wouldn't be fixed at this point in time.
Well, I just think it's not satisfactory to be asked to decide on things without evidence. I'd like to see the evidence and their arguments. And also it sort of contradicts, there's so many documents, but let me try and find the document here, where they said the exact opposite of that in the enterprise funds executive summary. Let me see. So so it says, in prior budget years, the city budgeted approximately $1 million as a transfer from the utility funds to the city's general fund. The purpose of the transfer was to reimburse the city's general fund for costs associated with the operation of the 4 utilities. The city now budgets funds as a direct reimbursement for actual costs as they occur for each of the enterprise funds. This change was made to comply with the requirements of the Government Accounting Standards Board and to address the concerns raised in prior audits, except we're not doing that. We're just saying, well, we need money to go to the general fund for, admin purposes. We're doing the exact opposite of what it says in this document, it seems to me. We're not budgeting each individual fund separately, like how much does the electric fund spend on admin? How much does the electric fund spend on admin salaries? We're not doing that. And so there's sort of, I find the analysis, just me, I'm not trying to start an insurrection, but from my point of view, it's unsatisfactory and inconsistent.
Well, that 1.025 million has been the charge to the utility fund for at least before my time.
Yeah.
There's never been a direct cost study done. We certainly didn't include that in our scope of work with regards to what cost the utility should be charging the general fund.
But I mean, I look at other utilities. I've been looking at Page because I happen to get the information there. For like the electric utility, they have line crew wages, construction wages, office salaries, pension. Everything is detailed.
So it's all detailed in our budgets.
Yeah, but we don't see it.
It's all been provided to them, it's all in that financial plan. So if you go back into this financial plan.
But they don't list out the admin. They don't list out the admin separately in their report.
Exactly.
So and that what's the document you read from, George?
Oh God, there's so many of them. Yeah, I'll find it.
because I found a document which was the same one. It was because it was the one that was sent to the group in 5/20. It was a 5/20/20, so May 20th, 2020. It stated that they're no longer using it. That's what it stated. So it's no longer using the $1 million. So they're not taking $1 million and transferring it to the general fund. They're charging the utilities directly. That's what that document says.
It's the annual proprietary funds budget executive summary adopted May 26, 2020.
So I guess, but what I was looking at, George, is I was looking at going down the line 3, 4, and 5. So we've jumped to 4 and 5. So we can either do that, or that's what I was trying.
Oh, that's coming. I didn't know how that fit into. I didn't look at those numbers. Okay.
So that's what I was, because what I tried to say was that the other ones, I agree with you. We don't have enough data yet. We don't, even with the draft report. I'm not sure we're going to have the data that we want. So
For items 1 and 2?
For 1 and 2,
Okay.
6, 7, 8, and 9. Those, I believe, we need to wait until we have the draft report, because then we would hopefully have more data to say.
And that was the one we talked about with the schedule. We're supposed to get that report, then read it. We got like 3 weeks or 4 weeks to read it and comment, right?
Would probably be considered at the first meeting in December.
Right.
I don't think we'll have it by workshop time. We might, but I don't know how much time that'd give you to review it.
No.
Well, it's just a matter of if we had it by workshop, we could at least
We probably will
talk
have
about it.
We would have it by workshop.
The draft.
By the 12th, by the December workshop?
This workshop coming up.
There's one coming up,
If
the
we do a
December
November
18th.
workshop on the
Okay, I'm
8th.
Well, that would give us,
I didn't realize we.
that would give us good timing. I mean, it's gonna rush, but it's gonna, at least.
Well, that's
if we
the-
have it, that'd be great.
Right. We won't have time to do a major review, but at least we could
But
discuss it.
by the 2nd of December, we should have some
And we could
idea.
certainly have them.
Well, that's only 2 weeks. That's a little bit pushing it
Understand,
too.
but But we can just have to say, we can't make a recommendation.
Well, yeah, we'd have to say what we do for the final report, because it'd be interesting to see how many pages this is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be several hundred. It's got a lot of data.
It's probably a lot of, well, it'll probably be a report with appendices that are voluminous, but the wording will be not that much, I don't think.
So what I'm foreseeing is that there's things that we can go back with the draft to say, we need more information, or can you give us this, or correct this, or something like that. And so maybe in the draft, in the workshop, we might be able to find something to at least discuss that. And then I think then once the final report's out, then we start looking at the appendices and stuff like that, and looking at, so we look at the different reports and say what's feasible and not feasible. And that's why the rest of these, I don't think we can quite go through because we don't have enough data. But 3, 4, and 5 up there, I believe we can talk about today.
Okay. Sorry, I got.
No, it's okay. And Howard, does that cover? So anybody else on that? So did I
For that,
make that clear this time? Did I misunderstand or misstate? So I guess one way to do it would be, like I said, if we start on number 3, where we look at the 3% and the $10, to see what the group thought about. I guess the first thing is, does everybody, or does the majority feel that the 3%, so if we can't vote now, but we would vote in the next meeting, is what recommendation. So for 3% and the $10, then if, Dennis, am I understanding correctly that what the city would put together or something, a new resolution has to be put together to accommodate those, correct?
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of idea on the process, just so you can think about it. Specifically with regards to the 3% reduction of energy cost and the $10 reduction in the water-based service charge, there's an NRS requirement in place for us now that we have to go out and do a business impact statement. And that's irregardless of whether it's an added cost to businesses or even if it's a reduction in cost to businesses, we still have to go through that process. So what we had discussed at the previous meeting, and I hadn't really thought about the business impact statement because I haven't had to do that in quite some time, is that these would go into effect with the with the next budget. Because by the time you get this through council and a couple of meetings of council to do and then you have to go through the business impact process, Then you have to have public hearings, and then you have to have council approval. You're gonna be there anyway. So putting this into into next year's budget addresses the business impact, and the timing is about the same. So my recommendation, if you were to ask me, would be to make those recommendations that you just discussed go into effect July 1st as part of next year's budget.
Well, the one thing would be well, first off, I think our recommendation is to start the business impacts as soon as possible.
Well, you wouldn't have to. What I'm saying is, right now, if you do a rate change, your budget is the business impact statement. You don't have to do the same process. Your budget is that process.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I misunderstood.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is the business impact statement takes time and effort. And since you're just doing the budget anyway, the timing is about the same. So it's almost, why do both?
Okay, so if we can so somehow if we can get a motion for next meeting, for the regular meeting, where we can vote, a motion could be that we would put the 3% as a budgetary item for fiscal year 22, and then state that by doing that, we don't have to do a business statement.
Yeah.
So make sure it's totally clear that we don't have to do both.
Right.
But I think we still would want you still have to have a resolution. And so understanding the 3%, still want to understand how the current resolution is, because you need a new one. They're going to, most of the old one, some of the old aspects are going to go away.
Right, and we can do that sooner rather than later. That can go forward to council with the public hearing, with the resolution to reduce those rates, effective July 1.
Right. But so if we could, so that should be something though that we could see in this group committee, correct?
Yeah, once we got those recommendations from you, we could draft up the resolution, and that could even go with those recommendations. The draft resolution could go to city council for consideration.
Okay, that's...
I'm not trying to be difficult, because I'm all for lowering rates, but the whole point is last month we were arguing that we needed to raise the rates in FY22. And now we're saying we need to lower them in FY22, which means, again, the whole exercise is somewhat, I'm a bit skeptical about this whole way of doing the numbers. We said we're going to lower the rates in FY21. That's what was in the presentation.
I understand, and that's why I made the comment that we unintentionally didn't consider the business impact statement process. So,
but then presumably raising the rates in FY22 was never necessary if we can.
We weren't never raising the rates in FY22.
Well, there's all this franchise fee and stuff that has to come from somewhere, and all that extra money that we're sending into the general fund. Where's that coming from?
Well, we're not considering that right now.
No, but that was supposed to kick in as a sort of steady increase over the next 5 years.
It would be an adjustment so it was in there. It's kind of a wash. So if you adjusted if you added the franchise fee and the administrative charge, that basically added up to manage the increase in cost for water and electricity to the general fund, because you know,
right.
And so,
but that's coming out of the electric fund. So
right.
The electric fund needs more money if they're sending more money there, and that presumably comes from these slow increases that they were advocating for.
Well, George, you bring up a good point, but I think it's two different things, because actually that's cost of service. That's what was going to bring the additional increase.
And the general fund would be providing additional revenue as a result. We would be getting additional revenue because we would be paying the retail rate. The general fund would be, general fund would be paying the retail rate.
Well, I'm just looking at it from
that would offset the loss of revenue to the utility through the franchise fee.
Well, George, what we might want to do is, and that's one thing I guess we have to figure out if we can do, is we would state that if we do we recommend the 3%, and even though we don't have all the data, then we don't recommend doing any cost of service changes in fiscal year 22. Because that way you're not then double you're not doing two separate things. We're focusing on the 3%, and we're gonna say we need more time to look at the cost of service. So without the cost of service, because I think what you're going to, so if we look at 3, 4, and 5, we just look at the general idea right now. 4, we need to discuss, we've got a little bit of time, but I don't think it should be the 1.4. So that, I think we're gonna reduce that. Hopefully, the whole group agrees that we don't want the franchise fee. So we'd be getting rid of that. So then we just say, since we believe the 3% can be done, but with the cost of service changes could affect that, we don't believe it should happen in '22. So maybe we have to put that with our recommendation. And then we take the next year or so to look at the reports, consider everything that was put out in the report, and we figure out what we can do
I can
going
buy
forward.
that, yeah.
And I think that also gives you the opportunity to validate all the other numbers that could potentially impact that, not just the franchise fee.
Correct.
Yeah, I can buy that, yeah.
So then I guess, so we will have to word whether we can do something today or have to start it in the regular meeting, but get a motion might be a little tricky on 3, 1, and 2. Because I think it would be better to have in the motion that we don't do we don't do the cost of service or anything else that would change in fiscal year '22. Because there's no use, because then we're just not, I agree, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So we would need something to see exactly how the 3% was what was the thought behind it, to make sure we understand if it's just a clear, or do we just take what the resolution currently has, reduces it by 3? Is that what the intent was,
Yeah,
or was there
what
something
we do is
else?
just go back into that resolution that set those rates and reduce those energy charges by 3%.
Okay, and I just didn't know if there was something else. Now, two, I think is a little more complicated than that.
No, we can actually create that resolution, and we would just show the $10 reduction on the 3/4 to 1 inch, and then it's meter-based prorated on top of that. We just have to calculate those numbers out for 2 inch, 2.5 inch, 3 inch.
Now, is that what you're talking about with the set residential to non-residential change equal to by
No,
size?
that would be the $10 reduction, because it's for different, $10 is where that reduction, that number is for 3/4 to 1 inch. And then you use AWA procedures based on meter size to set the rate for the meter size above that.
I guess, yeah.
So it won't be $10 for the $10 reduction, because I can't remember what call it $15 base water service charge for a 3/4 inch. You know, for a 1 inch, it might be $17.50. For a 2 inch, it might, it's capacity based on the meter size.
Right, but number 2 says state set residential and non-residential changes equal.
Right.
And right now, you've got $37 for the initial charge for residents, and you have $32 for the commercial.
And those numbers we would have to have the consultant calculate and provide to us, and we can do that.
And that's what I'm talking about. So taking the $10 off the 37 is pretty easy.
Right.
But then all those other, there's the commercial has, I think, almost 10 different schedules.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying, especially, so 3-2-1 isn't that hard. 3-2-2 is a little more difficult.
Right. But that's something that the consultant do relatively quick.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we just need to figure out how, again, so I guess that would be an example, not a resolution in the water, I would think. And then
Yes.
once it looked like it was the way to go, then we could, unless you want to do like a standard resolution, because I think we might want to see if the resolutions need to be even cleaned up.
I think they're going to need to be cleaned up. I think if you, in general, that was the recommendation you made, to have staff go develop those resolution that would set those rates, then we could bring that back to the committee.
That's what, so we just lost Greg, but I think that's what I would recommend. So maybe I'll just go around the corner and I'll start with you, Ned. What I would suggest, we're not voting, but just to say, or do we need any more discussion and how it's going? But I would suggest that on the 3% reduction and the $10, so we're looking at having the city and/or the consultants show us what that's going to look like. And so for three, I guess, three overall, give us examples of what it would look like.
Yep.
So, Ned,
Yeah, I agree with that, that's good.
okay, Marty?
Yes, I agree with that too.
I think it would look like 450,000 because they put in about 16 million, and that's what 3% of 16 million is. So I can do that for less than $200,000 that they're charging us.
Well, it just, that's the overall
It's
amount.
only 1 year.
But we want to see the rate, what the rate design looks like now, what the new rate
Okay.
design.
Sure, yeah, why not? Yeah, sure.
So, Howard,
I'm good with that.
Eileen?
Well, I'm concerned about even looking at a 3% reduction of the energy rates if we have not decided on the cost of service, because I don't think we need to reduce people's electric rates only to later increase them. The cost of service, if we went to that plan, it would increase the rates for residential. And if we were to lower them and then turn around and do cost of service and raise them, we wouldn't be doing a service to the community. I think we would give it to them and then yank it back, and I don't think that would be right.
Well, if we did it, if we stated in in our recommendation that we do not do anything for fiscal year 22, maybe even 23, so you do at least a 1 or 2 years, that would give the citizens a 1 year break, and then they would give the committee and the council and the city to determine, more time to determine if we agree with that overall estimate. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, because really the challenge is almost more of a challenge for the general fund than it is for the utility fund. But you're right.
I tend to agree with Eileen. I just don't like to be the only one who's always objecting to everything. But I don't know. I think we need some kind of overall plan rather than. I don't disagree with that. To say we're going to lower the rates in order to raise them is kind of. I mean, lowering the rates is good. It gives people a break. So I hate to argue against that. Also, that's why I went along with it. But it's sort of incoherent. I agree with that. It's like it looks like we don't know what we're doing. We're like, well, we'll lower them, then we'll raise them, then maybe we'll lower them again.
We're only talking about modify rates to city accounts to reflect cost of service, not citizens, city accounts. Okay, now the problem we've got, which is beyond our scope, is we've got to change our city charter. Okay, and that's not something that's in our wheelhouse. Because city charter states that city buildings get wholesale rates for utilities. And until you change that city charter, you can't change and go to this reflect cost of service for city accounts. So I say we drop it off the menu and we don't worry about it. We get rid of the franchise fee. We get 5 and 6 out of here. We don't address that until later on, and not even our tenure. You're talking about 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, whatever the year is. We're not going to be on this committee, and things are going to be changing. I used to argue about this city services thing, but when you get into this, you're talking city services. Now guess what we got to do? Every streetlight circuit's going to have a meter on it. Or we turn around and we get rid of the light bulbs we have on the city streetlights and we put in LED. That's something we need to start discussing, because that's a burden on the city. Our utility rate wholesale coming out of the plant, okay, that we can affect. If we start changing out our lamps from low pressure sodium, metal halide, high pressure sodium to LED, it's a proven thing. In Henderson, they did the whole thing in 1 year and they saved $1 million after buying the fixtures in 1 year. In electricity.
I think the issue you're raising is whether state law wins or whether the city charter, because state law says they're enterprise funds. You're saying the city charter says, well, we can't treat them that way. So who wins? I don't know.
The city charter, the city is not listed as an enterprise fund on the general services. The city has a city charter that was enacted during the city's creation that says the city buildings get a break on utilities and they pay the wholesale rate.
Yeah, but state law says they don't. So who wins?
We are a municipality. We're not for profit. That's the thing you got to look at. We're a municipality. The devil's in the details. Attorneys love these types of
Yeah, I don't know
arguments.
who wins in that case.
I say leave it alone, because we're gonna open up a can of worms that we can't fix.
And I think that's the crux here. I think I totally agree with that's what we want to. So there's two issues we have to do there, and Eileen, that's what you're looking at. Is there's two issues. There's the issue of whether the city pays more than wholesale or not, and the other thing is whether they try to equalize the cost of service to the residents and the commercial, and that's where we get more of the raise is there. So if we take those two and we put them on hold, so we say, okay, we take the final report, which we're looking sometime probably in January or something, January, February. We take that and we say, okay, now we can try to fit that into our meeting agendas and figure out what we're doing, because right now it's part of the charter, it's part of the resolution that they pay wholesale price of the city. We can discuss that. I agree with Greg that I think it's one of those things you're trying to, who's fair, what's fair, where to do it. So I think it'd be another great workshop to discuss it, to sort of say, make sure we're looking at all the angles and see what happens. I think you can say, let the city have a break, because the citizens, it's not going to necessarily help the citizens in the utilities, but there again, it'd be good discussion to have at another time. So if we don't enact the city paying over wholesale, and we don't enact the residential and the commercial equalization, then we don't have any raises. So that's why I'm saying we can look at 3, 4, and 5, but Greg really put it, we do have to put, and we might have to put that in the recommendations, the other ones have to be put on hold. We can't simply come in and say, it's gonna happen in 22 that the cost of a service would do. So does that help you, Eileen?
Well, the cost of service would have been a gradual increase. It wouldn't have been like in 1 year, so it would have been over a period of years.
Yeah, it was over 5 years.
Yeah. But I have a question for Greg. You said the charter says that we have to charge a wholesale rate to city buildings?
Based upon my knowledge of the city, I happen to have intimate knowledge with the lodge up on Lodge Road. Okay, that's one of the few three-phase services on a residential building in this whole community. Okay, they had a special rate because they were a commercial residential facility. They're not a business, they're actual R1-1, but they're being charged a commercial rate for electricity.
No,
Now-
I was talking, you said we couldn't charge wholesale or retail rates to city buildings for water, electric, all of them?
Utilities, everything.
Utilities, okay, and is that specifically, say, buildings?
Yes, facilities.
Facilities, because I'm talking about parks.
Yeah, it's parks as well.
That's a facility.
Okay,
So a park is a facility, a swimming pool is a facility, a basketball court is a facility, streetlights are a facility, city hall's a facility, maintenance is a facility, the maintenance facility's down on Railroad. All that stuff is charged at the wholesale rate to maintain city services.
okay.
And if we start monkeying with this, we've got to go back and amend what we started and built the city on as to how we're charging them their rates.
Okay, so what I'm concerned about is that the consultants weren't aware of this?
Yes, they're aware of it. That's
They-
why that cost of service is
Incremental.
so, it's such a burden on the general fund, because if you remember those numbers, I think it was a $2.8 million difference just on the water side.
But I
the
mean, why
general
would
fund-
they recommend that if it would be against city charter?
Because they just did the cost of service study. They don't look at the city policy.
They don't, yeah.
Obviously, they use that in their rates, but when they do the cost of service so that everybody's paying their fair share, that's the math they did. So it's not.
So that math is
they're
actually
the ones not deciding whether to keep that policy or not.
But the math is actually skewed, because if we had to exclude the city facilities from the cost of service adjustments, that would skew it completely different as to how it would have to be changed.
Yeah, and that's an option you could look at. I think I understand what you're saying. But what makes it such a burden is, especially on the water side, is the amount of usage by city facilities is fairly
Phenomenal.
significant compared to
Yeah.
other utilities that may be subsidizing a rate because it's a smaller component of their total usage. In Boulder City, it's at least half, and more than half. So, because it's golf courses, it's all the parks. You know,
Here's something that we were all sitting on this before COVID. By changing the municipal golf course from potable water to non-potable water was a tremendous savings even at the wholesale rate for the golf course. Now, just that savings, I think we estimated was $1 million a year, I think it was, in water fees on the wholesale rate, okay, residential. So now you're talking $750,000 a year for water on the what I call the raw water, okay? So now if you add, let's say the $1 million cost on the water for potable water to the golf course, and then add what we're paying residential for that water, you're talking a heck of a lot of money. And that would be borne on every city park, which has no meters on them. They're just head under the tap, and they're tapped onto the main line and go. City Hall, everything. I mean, it's a heck of a cost. And so what they're gonna do is they said, well, if you, the utilities, are gonna bill us for water at the retail rate, then we're gonna tack you guys for a 5% franchise fee. And we're also gonna take and do on the service-based rates, we're gonna tack on another charge. So all we're doing is taking the money out of the left pocket and putting it in the right pocket and circling back around. To me, it's crazy. I mean, if you start nickel and diming everything that's going on, you're gonna wind up pulling your pocketbook out even to walk into City Hall, because they're gonna be charged a fee to come in here and talk to somebody.
But my whole point is, if our charter states we can't do it, it shouldn't have been in the study, and therefore there wouldn't have been any recommendation for a 5% franchise fee. I mean, they added that because...
Greg, I don't think it's in the charter. I think it was by resolution. So the resolution could be changed by any council.
I had to do the research on it. I heard two different things, but like I said, I've got the original one, the rate study from, well, this is the recap of the rate study from back 10 years ago or whatever.
Okay, I know for certain that it's in resolution.
Okay, so we need to know if it's charter or resolution.
I'm not aware of, but we can check into the charter portion, but I know for certain it's in by resolution.
Okay, but resolutions could be changed, so that makes my whole discussion moot.
Right.
But
well, so we'll need to validate that, because I'm not aware that it's in charter, but I do know for certain it's in resolution.
okay, because that changes everything.
But also, it's not written in stone that we have to charge the utility funds for the water. That's the general fund's problem. It's not, the general fund has to find the money from somewhere. It doesn't have to come from the utility fund. It could come from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like saying, I can't afford to pay my electric bill, so I'm going to charge you more money.
Right. Or would a city council want to go raise a property tax to,
exactly, that's the kind of
worms. It has all its challenges that come with it.
But as a homeowner, I would rather pay a higher property tax than a higher utility bill, because I can deduct my property taxes from my income tax.
They're betting that you're unusual. That's the bet they're placing.
But I think this is what I think, so I think we do not, so the one recommendation we do not take is that we incorporate anything in 22, not except the 3% and the $10. So that gets, and if we need to push it out to 23, so we give the citizens a little more of a break, or the city, however you want to, then we can keep it studying it, but there's no reason we have to start it in 22. The cost of service. Well, the franchise fees, I think, is just wrong.
Well, and even down the road, if you pushed it off, that could be further discussion with the general fund. General fund, do we want to fix this cost of service, and where would you get that revenue? They would say, well, we'd probably have to do a franchise fee, or maybe it's from somewhere else. I don't know where that would be.
It seems to me that should be a discussion somewhere or another, figure out where that's going to be from.
Okay.
I think it's easy enough to do without the 5% part. Shouldn't be totally just left out, but I don't think that's where we should go. But it should be part of the discussion.
Well, we can look at it, and discuss it, but I guess we need to make sure we understand the cost of service to
Right.
pieces. That needs to be understood too.
I think that's the part we're missing is, what I got from what Greg was saying, we just need we need that cost of service results, and we need to know that to make this decision on the 5%.
Well, we got that, but you also have the cost of service to equalize what the consultant said, equalize residential and commercial.
That's what I think we're doing, like we're saying, we're just moving money.
No, there's two separate issues. There's the city paying, if you were to say the city to pay their fair share, that's one issue. Now the consultant also said that the residents aren't paying their fair share, that the commercial is paying too much.
Right.
And so there's two issues there. So that's what I'm saying.
And that's what we need to find out.
Right.
And I think we can certainly have them available for the next workshop to have the discussion on the cost of service.
Well, we can see, so far I'm sorry, I'll be totally honest, that we've just argued about it. They haven't given us good input, but we can, maybe if we have the report, we can go over the report.
That's what we need is a report.
And do it, because they said they stated what was going on in the March meeting. I went back and reviewed the video, and it was not discussed in any detail. So Eileen asked for more detail. She was told to go to the March 9th video. I did go, and so that's when I'm a little frustrated with, we're not necessarily, and we've asked them for a lot of information and have not gotten, I don't believe have gotten a single of our request given to us.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, so we have to see what's going on, but, so we've got a few minutes left. So the 3%, I guess, so between George and Eileen, are you saying that if could you agree that we would put it on hold, or do we need more time to decide on the 3% and the $10?
Well, I would be in favor of the $10 reduction per month, that portion of it, because there's no plan in the future to raise it. Let me look at that. I'd have to look at the cost of service.
What they said with regard to the service charge is that it would be, it would stay the same through 2026.
Yeah, so I'd be in favor of that, but I would not be in favor of pushing the 3% reduction if we haven't made our mind up about the cost of service, because I'd hate to take it away. I mean, give them the extra money and then take it back away in a year, and that's just going to create ill will.
Yeah, I guess the question too, though, is that to get the 3% into the budget time frame, how soon do we have to have that decided?
Well, at the latest, it would have to, the final approval to council goes in April, so it would need to be a few months before that, probably February.
Okay, so whether we can get that answered. So I guess the recommendation still could be that I would suggest that we say we're in favor of the 3% if we don't do the cost of service for at least a year or two, minimum. Now, but does that, because at least it gives you a full year that you're not going to change anything. So I guess I'm still making sure I'm understanding.
Well, I'd say it'd have to be more than a year, because if you reduce rates 1 year and then raise them the next, people's memories are longer than that.
And there's certainly nothing wrong with waiting, in 2 years or 3 years, you're going to have better data, so.
Yeah, so I guess that's what I would, so if we could either say 2 years or something, so it depends how fast we have to do it, and maybe, but see, you won't be here on the next workshop, so we'll have to I want to make sure you have a voice, and so we need to figure out what we can do. So in the regular meeting, I guess we'll have to see what type of recommendation we want to move forward with on that. So maybe we can, did you have an input?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I thought.
I'm good.
So maybe we need to put that on hold just a little bit. We've got 15 minutes left, and we've stated some ideas about 3, 4, and 5, and I'd like to sort of go back to that, and then that sort of might help us in some things too. The central service fee, I agree with what George read, is that the cities document themselves. So Dennis, you were saying that it's been done forever. Well, that's okay, but in your
I don't know
in
if
the,
forever, but it was before me.
well, but the city's document states that because of the state law and audit concerns, that they're not going to no longer doing it.
Well,
So-
I think they're doing it, but I think all that they're doing is they're doing it proportionally based out of each utility.
Well, see, this
That
is
1.025 million.
this is very confusing, and that's what I kept stating, and I was kept told that no, it's there. Well, it isn't clear.
Right.
What you have transfers from each utility for specific things, and then you have the transfer for that $1 million.
Well, there's transfers for this utility, each utility for certain things like paying me and Joshua. That's different. And then there's transfers of the 1.025 from each utility to the general fund. Those are different.
Well, I believe it's like $800,000 just
Yeah, I
in.
don't remember the actual number.
And
but yeah,
so
probably.
if that's for three of you, for electric only, it seems a little high. So it doesn't seem proportional. So that seems to be that's the confusing part.
Okay, why don't we can have that discussion at the workshop.
Okay, because basically what the minimum I think we would want to say is that first off, we need to see if the central fee is going to even be legitimate, if you're incorporated in a different way. But what it looks to be is that 4 was set at 5%, which I believe is what was sent to us in one of the deliverables, that's the maximum amount that could be charged, and that's what you were going, so it was going to be raised to the 1.4. Where in one of the earlier documents, it says that the city council wanted to try to keep it at 1 million.
That's correct, and that's what's in the budget today.
Correct. So I would suggest minimally, if nothing else, that we say we do not incorporate the 1.4 into the 22 budget, and it needs to be further looked at, but it does not go, and we need to find out how the $1 million is being incorporated.
Okay.
Actually, Mrs. Pelletier said it could be 11%, so.
Okay.
But what I'd like to see very simply is one spreadsheet just saying the electric utility, here's a breakdown by, you're saying it exists, but I haven't seen it, just as along the lines of what Page does, because there it's very clear. You just say, here's how much they're spending on each item, as opposed to it disappearing into other funds where you don't know really how it's being spent, you know. That's what it looks like to me.
If we can get the actuals, because they put out the budgeted, but not the actuals. But they did not put out the proposed and the old for. They sent it to me and did not include it in the regular document, which I asked them to put it in the document, and it was not. Because it doesn't make sense if we've got everything else broken out, why isn't the utility fund broken out in the financial plan? So that would be my major comment in the financial plan for number 1, is to include the utility utility administration breakout so they're only going to show us the budget amount. It would be good if we could get it as a deliverable. Josh, could we maybe put that down as a deliverable? Is that we get it from the city, the actuals. So it'd be good to get it for 2019 and 2020, but 2020, I think minimally. Is that, George?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'd just like to see a breakdown of where the money's going rather than it goes to the utility admin fund and then we don't know exactly, you know, how much is this money for the city manager involved. How much time is it? Maybe I'm being bananas with bureaucracy, but how much time is the guy spending on the electric fund? You know, he's charging the electric fund for his salary. They do it in Page, so it's not an astronomer just inventing stuff out of thin air. Other utilities do it, and it's easy to read. You can just see it. Doesn't mean the numbers are right. It's unfair to be skeptical about our numbers. Maybe their numbers are bogus, that I don't know. But at least they have numbers on one spreadsheet where you can just see the whole thing on one page. And I find that really useful as an outsider. So, yeah.
So what, does anybody, so can we make a recommendation on 4, or do we have to wait for more information? I guess I'll start with you, Eileen, and we'll go around the table again and see what you think.
Well, we can't really make a recommendation at a workshop, but my point on I agree with George. The general fund has just pulled an amount out of the air to say how much the utilities should reimburse them, but they have never done any documentation of how much each general fund employee spends on each utility. And I don't know if it was the finance director or her assistant, but I asked that at a budget meeting, and they said that to their knowledge it had never been done. So I know from my experience working for the city of Lincoln City in Oregon, every couple of years I had to document my time for, say, a period of an average month, how much I was spending on water, sewer, general fund, payroll, whatever. And that was compiled to come up with an accurate amount that the utilities were charged for my salary. Actually, my salary was taken directly out of the utility funds. It wasn't taken out of finance. And so I really think we need to have some hard figures as to how much each employee is spending on each utility.
Well, and you're talking about basically a direct cost study. That would also have to include everything else, right? We don't pay rent on buildings. We don't pay rent in this building. We don't pay rent in the shop that the city owns. It's not owned by the utility. We don't pay taxes on the city property that all our facilities are on. So you would have to look at that as a whole.
Why?
Why?
Well, the general fund admin costs, we were told, was to go to salaries for...
No, I'm just saying if you were going to do a direct cost study of what the utility should be charging the general fund, not just our costs.
No, I'm saying the reverse.
They're claiming they've done that. Actually, that's what Mrs. Pelletier said to me. Utilities, like you said, does not own any of its buildings, blah, blah. The increase in charges to utilities is in reflection of the city charging a fair fee for its services. So presumably they have done that analysis. They can't have it both ways and say, we've done this analysis, we're not going to show it to you, but we just need more money. It doesn't make sense. She's saying in this letter, in response to my question, that they have done this analysis because that's how they came up with that number, right?
I don't think it was to the detail that Eileen is talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not I'm not
No,
shooting
I'm just
bullets
saying,
at you.
to my knowledge, I'm not aware that we've done a detailed.
But she's claiming they have. I mean, it's this public letter that you circulated, her answer to my question. It says the increase in charges is in reflection of the city charging a fair fee for its services. But if you don't know, and she specifically raises the issue, the rent and all that.
Right.
So how can they say that if they haven't done that? Then they're just winging it, which is what Eileen was implying.
And I think, and I'm not positive, I'd have to go back and ask finance, I believe that number came out of the previous rate study, and I don't know how that was developed.
I call foul. Look on City of Boulder City Utility Funds capital projects year to date. The first two line items are City Shop Utility Administration Building Refurbishment, City Shop's Utility Administration Covered Parking, I think it is. Utility capital projects, and everything's being billed back to the Utility Administration Fund, but we don't own any buildings.
I'm not sure.
So that was just paying our share of those improvements.
Well, then we do have a shareholder, we do have a stake in the building.
Right.
So we're not getting the buildings for free, we're having to contribute to fixing them out of our utility fund.
Right.
So we do have shops and offices in the buildings. Okay, because we just were told that, we don't own anything out here as a utility fund.
Well, we're not paying rent on it.
Well, but it's the same thing. We shouldn't have to pay rent. If we're looking at the city paying wholesale rates for everything, why should the utilities pay rent and stuff like that? So it sort of dovetails in, and I think we're all sort of looking at it, maybe the city, we need to understand it, but there's probably good reason why the city pays wholesale, and the utility needs to be fairly advised as it's part of the city. It's not a for profit. If it was for profit, it'd be something else. It's not for profit, it's at cost. We're trying to keep the cost down as much as we could. So I think I'm hearing, all we're trying to say is that I agree with everything. What it looks like in the past, all the budgets have been based on a estimate, not on actuals. And they saying they can't get the actuals. Because the actual cost in fiscal year 2020 was pretty low for the admin compared to, it was only 2.8. And this year we did 3 million, but that was a reduction because of COVID. And it's just going to be, and it's being projected to go up quite a bit higher. So I think that's what we're all saying. So we're running into another problem. I'm not sure we can go around the table the rest of the way because I'd like to get to 5 really quick. But it looks like then what it might have to be done is we have to put that one on hold to get more information also. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, so I don't think we can, I'm not even sure in the regular meeting we can, hopefully maybe we can circle back to it if we have time, but I'm not sure we have time to do that. So we have 5 minutes left to do the number 5, and I'm
That one's easy.
that one, so I guess, Howard, if I understood you correctly, you were saying that we'd want to look at it later, but I think a true franchise fees, I don't think applies to Boulder City, not the Boulder City utilities. I don't think if for some reason we do a cost of the cost of service and we say something has to change and the general fund needs more money, but it should be a franchise fee. So I think that, and there again, that one was 5%. I'm pretty positive that was the maximum amount. And that one was just, okay, we're just going to get 5% and we're going to take it to the general fund. And it's for several different reasons.
Yeah, and that one's 5% as the maximum per NRS.
Right. So my suggestion would be at the regular vote is we would state that this should not apply to Boulder City. It should not go into the fiscal year 22 rate, and it should not go into budget, and it should not go into future budgets for this. And then if we want to look at other ways, the city, if we were to do it.
The only reason I was saying to keep it is because I want to know where the monies are coming from to fund whatever we need to fund. I think it's going to come out of this cost of service results too. I think it's going to tell us a whole lot about where we're at. So that was my only suggestion. It doesn't. It can come back up if we need it.
But I think we need something different than a franchise fee. I don't think that applies.
I'm with you on that,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, some need to find out where those. I agree with you all that we don't know where these costs are going from. They're just a number thrown out there. We can't have that.
Yeah.
I would be more satisfied with that discussion of where those numbers are. Then we could determine. It's like me asking you for $10. What are you going to use it for? I just need $10. Well,
Yeah.
That's not what we're going to do here. So I'm good with holding on that.
So I guess, okay, George, what do you think about if we just, in the regular meeting, put some type of motion like that? We're not voting now, we're just trying to get an idea if that's feasible.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah.
Marty?
Yeah, I would go along with deleting the 5% franchise fee.
Thanks.
Recommending that.
Okay. Greg?
Yeah, I recommend removal of the item number 5, proposed addition, 5% franchise fee.
Ned?
Yeah, I'm on board with the same thing. I think a franchise fee is not something that would go over very well at all in this town. I know when I look at my telephone bill or gas bill and I see those franchise fees, when do you quit adding extra fees on to buying cheap gas, for instance, so I think it would not be a good idea.
Eileen?
I agree.
Okay, thanks. So I think, when we get into the regular meeting and on the item for the rate study, we'll have to look at 3 again and 4, but hopefully I think we can put a proposal down, and so I guess we can discuss that, and that would be a voted on item. Does that sound? Okay, so at least we accomplished that. But I think again, it's a short, but I think this is a lot of help. And we need to get our agenda items and probably have less presentations and be able to discuss more things.
I think we got something done here, so.
with this. Okay, so any other comments before we're
Yeah, I inevitably had a last one, but so I like to just read general things and just ask kind of questions a bit off the wall. But one of the books I was reading was saying, well, one of the big risks is what if the whole grid fails, like the whole Western grid goes down? They're saying people are trying to hack. There's a sort of arms race between hackers and things, and also I think it's something that might be worth thinking about. Does Boulder City have a game plan if the whole thing, say a solar flare takes the whole Western grid out, or hackers take it out? And maybe I sound like the COVID-19 guy in 2018. Well, no, that's not going to happen, but you know, risks are risks, and the experts are saying it's non-zero, so I don't know.
But I think that's probably something we'd put on the next agenda. So it's not part of this this agenda here. Anybody have any comment on the utility rate?
Larry, we still need to do public comment? Okay.
I'm just trying to close this out so I can get there. Thank you. Anybody else? So I guess we're going to have to close it out and go to the public comment, especially if anybody wants a break before the 3 o'clock meeting. So, okay, so we'll close down the regular part of the agenda. We'll open up the last public comment period for anybody. Again, the number is 702-589-9629.
You're on.
Yes, again, for the record, Fred Volz, committee members. One update of note for everyone would relate to the longstanding issue of where the over $20 million of budgeted, collected, unreconciled, and unspent utility capital project money sits currently. For over 14 months, the city finance director has been unable or unwilling to resolve this problem that materially impacts utility rates despite repeated public requests to do so. At the Audit Review Committee's September 28th meeting, one of the members, Councilwoman Hoskins, asked the question. The city finance director finally committed to having the city's external auditors, Hinton Burdick, look into the issue. No timeline for a result was established. So far, there has been no official result disclosed publicly after over a month. The committee may want to ask the city finance director for the latest projected completion date. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess we will just relate, I guess, again, no voting. We'll just adjourn the meeting. So it's 2:48. It's what I see on the clock on the wall. And so we have until 3 o'clock to be back to start the regular meeting. Thanks for everybody's time.